fighting nice. Not fighting, but you know, when we disagree, we do it.
In the world of American television, few names carry as much weight as Shannon Bream, the renowned Fox News anchor, always known for her firm stance, her incisive interviews, and for staying at the center of some of the most powerful controversies in the media. But now, Shannon is facing a decision that has shocked her fans and colleagues. She is saying goodbye, and the reason is even more devastating than many could have imagined. The announcement came with a somber tone, wrapped in mystery and emotion, following the revelation that her husband is facing a tragic and unexpected diagnosis, something that has forced her to re-evaluate her career, her personal life, and the way she connects with the public. But, as always, nothing in Shannon Bream's journey comes without controversy. Many remember the harsh criticism she has faced over the years for her firm opinions, for confronting powerful figures live on air, and even for being accused of being too tough during historic interviews. Some have called her the most controversial voice on Fox, while others see her as a symbol of female courage in a world dominated by men. Now, in the face of this farewell filled with mystery and pain, even more questions arise. What is really happening behind the scenes? Is this just a temporary pause, or the definitive end of an era? In this video, we will dive into the most controversial details, reveal the behind-the-scenes twists, and expose the most surprising points of this farewell that is already dividing opinions across the entire country. That's why I'm asking you, the viewer, to subscribe to the channel right now and activate the notification bell, because your subscription is the only way for YouTube to understand that this content is relevant and to keep recommending it to more people, as well as helping us keep this space alive and independent. If you can support even more, use the Super Thanks feature. It makes a huge difference for the channel's growth. But if you can't, that's perfectly fine. Leave a comment telling us which part of this story surprised you the most, because your opinion is essential to us. And don't go anywhere, because the final revelation in this video will impact you in a way you never imagined. Shannon Bream, one of the most recognized and respected journalists at Fox News, has surprised the public by announcing a goodbye that many still cannot believe is real. This farewell, whether definitive or just a drastic pause, did not come from common reasons such as professional exhaustion or the search for new projects, but from something far more human and devastating: her husband, Shannon Bream's fight for life. The couple has always shared a story marked by health challenges, but now, faced with a new tragic diagnosis, Shannon has made the hardest decision of her entire career, choosing to put family above everything else. And that's something that connects her with thousands of people who understand the weight of such a choice. From the very beginning of her career as a news anchor, Shannon built an image of firmness, confidence, and credibility, often being the voice that brought order amid the chaos of breaking news. For many viewers, her presence was a safe harbor, a figure who conveyed seriousness without losing empathy. That's why, when she revealed she would be stepping away, the emotion was immediate. The audience wasn't just losing a journalist, they were losing a familiar companion who had been part of their daily lives for so many years. The announcement was made with restrained emotion, without spectacle, but with a sincerity that made clear just how much this decision cost her. She acknowledged that, although she loves her career deeply, the moment had come to prioritize her personal life, especially in such a delicate time. Many fans and fellow journalists began to wonder whether this farewell is temporary or if we are witnessing the end of an era in American television. Some believe Shannon may return someday, perhaps in a lighter format or at a slower pace, but the truth is that nothing is guaranteed. What we know for sure is that this was a gesture of courage from a woman who, even at the peak of success, chose to say no to the spotlight in order to say yes to what truly matters, being by the side of the person she loves in such a difficult moment. This choice also raises deep reflections about the weight of success and the priorities of modern life. How many times do we see public figures consumed by work, pressure, and the need to always be present, even when their hearts are asking for a pause? By making this decision, Shannon sends a powerful message, not only to journalists, but to anyone who has faced the painful choice between career and family. As she says goodbye, she doesn't present herself as a victim, but as someone who decided to take control of her own life, even if that meant leaving behind something she built with so much effort and passion. And that is exactly what makes her departure so impactful. It's not just a television host stepping away. It's a woman showing that behind the cameras, there beats a heart that carries the same pain, fears, and hopes that we all share. The tragic diagnosis of Shannon Bream's husband, Shannon Bream, has reignited an old fear that never truly left the couple's lives, even during their happiest moments and greatest achievements. From a young age, Shannon faced one of the toughest battles a human being can endure, a brain tumor the size of a golf ball. At the time, the news hit like a bomb, radically changing the future he and Shannon had imagined together. The surgery to remove the tumor was extremely long and risky. It lasted about 9 hours, and left behind consequences that marked his life, including a temporary facial paralysis that deeply affected both of their confidence. Over the years, although Sheldon managed to recover and build a normal life alongside Shannon, the shadow of that diagnosis never completely disappeared. It always lingered as a reminder that health is fragile and that the unexpected can strike at any moment. Now, with the revelation of a new diagnosis, that old fear has returned even stronger, bringing not only the pain of the current situation but also the emotional weight of everything they have already endured in the past. Shannon, always very private about her personal life, made it clear that this new chapter is an enormous challenge, but she also emphasized the faith and hope that remain the pillars of their relationship. For the couple, it is not just about facing an illness. It is about reopening emotional scars that once demanded almost superhuman resilience. It is inevitable that the public feels moved when they see how Shannon, known for her firmness and composure on camera, reveals herself to be so human and vulnerable when it comes to her husband. Many fans still remember how she once described the moment she first saw signs of Sheldon's recovery years ago, when he managed to move the corner of his mouth slightly while they were at a restaurant. It was a small gesture, but one filled with immense hope. Today, with a new diagnosis, those miraculous moments hold even greater meaning, reminding them that their fight was never in vain. The news also serves as a universal reminder that no one is immune to life's pains and challenges. Not even admired and successful public figures like Shannon Bream. The old fear that has resurfaced is, at the same time, a call to look back and recognize the strength they have already shown, and to look forward with courage, knowing that, even in the face of life's greatest adversities, love and unity can provide the strength needed to carry on. This new battle is not only medical, but also emotional, spiritual, and deeply human, and the world watches with empathy as Shannon and Sheldon face the storm once again, side by side. The 9-hour surgery to remove Sheldon Bream's brain tumor was one of the most defining and painful moments in his life and in the life of his wife, Shannon Bream, an experience that tested not only the limits of medicine, but also the couple's faith, resilience, and strength. Imagine the scene: a young man with his entire life ahead of him, full of dreams and plans, suddenly confronted with the devastating news that he had a golf ball-sized tumor in his brain. The initial shock was followed by a race against time, because the only hope lay in an extremely complex and high-risk surgery, one that could either save his life or leave him with irreversible consequences. It was 9 endless hours inside the operating room, while Shannon, family members, and friends waited outside, hearts heavy, minds flooded with unanswered questions. With every passing minute, the tension and fear grew stronger. The doctors battled through the delicacy of the procedure, aware that a single mistake could compromise vital brain functions. In the end, the news arrived: the tumor had been successfully removed. But that victory did not come without consequences. Post-surgery swelling pressed against crucial nerves, causing serious complications that led to facial paralysis. For Sheldon, looking in the mirror and seeing his altered reflection was a profound shock. For Shannon, witnessing the man she loved suffer in such a way was an almost unbearable emotional challenge. And yet, the couple chose to face the situation with hope, even in the darkest moments. There followed months of recovery, physical therapy, constant care, and endless patience, with no guarantee of improvement. And it's at this point that their story takes on an almost miraculous tone. One ordinary day, in a simple restaurant, Shannon noticed a faint movement in the corner of Sheldon's mouth, a sign that the nerves were starting to respond. What might have seemed insignificant to anyone else became, for them, a moment of pure hope, a reminder that even in the midst of pain, there is always room to believe in the impossible. That surgery was not merely a medical procedure, it was a turning point in their lives. It changed the way they viewed the fragility of life, strengthened their bond as a couple, and proved that even in the harshest battles, love and faith can become a force strong enough to sustain someone when everything else seems to fall apart. The 9-hour operation remains a symbol of endurance, reminding us all that even when days feel unbearably long and painful, there can still be a light of hope at the end of the struggle. The facial paralysis that followed Sheldon Bream's surgery complications was one of the most difficult and sensitive chapters in the couple's story, because it wasn't just about physical recovery, but also about a profound emotional, psychological, and even social impact. After the long and risky 9-hour brain tumor surgery, everyone expected the road ahead to be one of healing and improvement. But the body doesn't always respond the way we hope. Post-surgery swelling pressed against essential facial nerves, resulting in severe paralysis. Suddenly, Sheldon could no longer smile as before. He lost control of his facial expressions and had to face something that strikes at the heart of anyone's self-esteem. The reflection in the mirror was no longer the same. For a man who had already faced the harsh reality of a tumor, dealing with this new consequence felt almost unbearable. And for Shannon, watching her husband go through such drastic changes was equally painful. The face is one of our most personal calling cards. It's how we communicate, express emotion, and present ourselves to the world. When that is taken away, the consequences are not merely aesthetic. They go deep into one's identity and the way we connect with others. Sheldon had to relearn how to live with curious stares, unnecessary comments, and, most importantly, his own inner battle for self-acceptance. Yet, amid all the pain, Shannon never left his side. She was not only his partner but also his constant encourager, reminding him that his worth and essence went far beyond appearance. There were months of physical therapy, small daily exercises, moments of frustration and tears, but also moments of faith and perseverance. And then, at one point, a seemingly small gesture became a turning point of hope. During dinner at a simple restaurant, Shannon noticed that the corner of Sheldon's mouth moved slightly. To anyone passing by their table, it might have seemed insignificant, but for them, it was like witnessing a true miracle. That tiny movement symbolized not only the beginning of physical recovery, but also proof that their struggle had not been in vain. The facial paralysis, with all its challenges, ultimately became a symbol of Sheldon's resilience and of the strength of their love. They showed the world that it is not appearance that defines who we are, but the way we face adversity. Today, looking back, Shannon and Sheldon know that this painful chapter was also one of courage, patience, and hope, a reminder to all of us that even the greatest obstacles can be overcome when there is faith and unity. Sheldon Bream's slow recovery after surgery was a long process, full of ups and downs, yet marked by moments that many would describe as true public miracles. After the complications that resulted in facial paralysis, the couple's life changed completely. What used to be routine was replaced by frequent medical appointments, physical therapy sessions, and a daily exercise schedule that demanded discipline and patience. Sheldon, who had always been a determined person, had to face not only the physical challenges but also the emotional weight of not knowing whether he would ever regain normal facial movement. By his side, Shannon was more than a wife. She was a pillar of encouragement and faith. She recalls in interviews that there were days when everything seemed stuck, with no progress at all, and the feeling of frustration almost took over. However, it was precisely during one of those uncertain times that something simple brought renewed hope. During an ordinary dinner at a restaurant, a Pizza Hut, of all places, Shannon noticed something that had seemed impossible until then. The corner of Sheldon's mouth moved. It was a small, almost imperceptible gesture, but one filled with meaning. For them, that moment was confirmation that the fight had been worth it, and that the recovery, no matter how slow, was truly happening. It wasn't a miracle in the supernatural sense, but rather a victory of persistence, faith, and patience. From that day forward, every small improvement became a reason to celebrate. A subtle movement in his face, a gain in his speech, an expression slowly returning, each was a triumph in itself. For the couple, these signs were reminders that no matter how long it took, there was always a possibility of healing. That slow recovery phase taught them far more than how to deal with a health problem. It brought lessons in humility, resilience, and the value of everyday victories. Shannon and Sheldon learned that you don't need grand events to witness miracles, because they often hide in the quiet details life gives us when we least expect it. That period also strengthened their bond even more, showing that even in the face of the greatest challenges, love and companionship can transform pain into hope and fear into courage. The hidden battles of Shannon Bream, especially her struggle with chronic eye pain, reveal a lesser-known side of the anchor, a deeply human and vulnerable side that often remained hidden behind the cameras. For years, Shannon lived with intense pain in her eyes that affected her personal life, her sleep, and even her performance at work. She described the sensation as if shards of glass were constantly scraping the surface of her eyes, something almost impossible to endure on a daily basis. Still, despite consulting several specialists, she did not receive an accurate diagnosis. Many doctors downplayed her complaints, suggesting it might be an emotional issue, and some even implied that the pain was all in her head. This medical negligence not only prolonged her physical suffering but also created an enormous emotional burden, leaving Shannon feeling helpless and disbelieved. While the public saw her every day, poised, professional, and smiling on camera, behind the scenes she endured sleepless nights, tears of frustration, and dark thoughts about how much longer she could bear that pain. In later interviews, Shannon admitted that, in moments of desperation, she thought she might not be able to continue living that way due to the unbearable intensity of her suffering. That period became a turning point in her life, exposing the fragility even in someone as strong and composed as she appeared to be. Only after years of persistence and relentless searching did she finally find a doctor who took her symptoms seriously and identified the cause. MAP. Fingerprint dystrophy, also known as recurrent corneal erosion, an incurable condition, but one that can be managed with proper treatment. The diagnosis brought not only relief but also validation. It wasn't imagination, it wasn't exaggeration, it was real. This chapter of Shannon's life stands as a powerful example of the invisible battles many people fight in silence, unnoticed by the world around them. It also underscores the importance of never giving up in the search for answers and of trusting one's own experience, even when others try to invalidate it. Today, by sharing her story, Shannon inspires thousands of people who face chronic pain or overlooked illnesses, reminding them that they are not alone and that their struggle has meaning. This may be one of the deepest battles of her life, not just against physical pain, but against indifference, disbelief, and the loneliness that comes with suffering from something invisible to others. The correct but incurable ophthalmologic diagnosis became a true turning point in Shannon Bream's life. After years of constant pain, sleepless nights, and the painful feeling that no one truly believed her symptoms, she finally had an explanation for what she was going through. After visiting several doctors who insisted on minimizing her suffering, a specialist finally identified that Shannon was suffering from a condition called MAP. Fingerprint dystrophy, also known as recurrent corneal erosion. It is a chronic eye disease in which the surface of the cornea repeatedly breaks down, causing intense pain, extreme sensitivity to light, blurred vision, and the constant feeling of having something scratching the eyes. For Shannon, hearing this diagnosis was both a relief and a frustration. Relief because, for the first time, someone had validated her pain and confirmed that it was neither her imagination nor an exaggeration, as many doctors had suggested before. Frustration because this condition has no definitive cure, only palliative treatments that help control the symptoms and reduce the frequency of flare-ups. In other words, it wasn't a battle she could simply win once and for all, but rather a condition she would have to learn to manage for the rest of her life. Despite the difficulty, this diagnosis gave Shannon something essential: the tools to cope. She began using specific medications, eye drops, daily care routines, and lifestyle adjustments that, while not eliminating the problem, brought significant improvement to her quality of life. But more than that, it also brought her a new perspective. Shannon realized that although she couldn't control the existence of the disease, she could control the way she responded to it. And it was at that moment that her faith, resilience, and fighting spirit became even stronger. This chapter of her life also transformed her into a voice of hope for other people who suffer from chronic and invisible illnesses. Often, those who face such conditions deal not only with physical pain, but also with the emotional burden of not being taken seriously. Shannon knows exactly what that feels like, and by sharing her experience, she encourages thousands of people to keep searching for answers, to trust themselves, and never to give up on fighting for their health. Although the diagnosis did not bring a cure, it brought clarity, coping strategies, and above all, the certainty that she was not alone. Today, Shannon lives with the awareness that some battles can never truly be ended, but they can be transformed into testimonies of strength, faith, and courage, inspiring everyone who follows her journey. The psychological crisis and the desolate thoughts of Shannon Bream represent perhaps the most intimate and silent phase of all her personal battles, a moment when the physical pain she endured intertwined with deep, invisible emotional suffering. For many years, Shannon lived with unbearable chronic eye pain, described as if shards of glass were constantly scraping her eyes. Even so, she continued to appear in front of the cameras with a smile, projecting the image of strength and serenity that her audience knew so well. But behind the scenes, the reality was entirely different. With every sleepless night and every medical appointment in which she was discredited or her symptoms were minimized, her sense of helplessness grew stronger. This physical and emotional exhaustion began to erode her hope, leading her to question how much longer she could endure that situation. In later interviews, Shannon revealed that she had gone through very dark moments, times of despair when she considered that she might not be able to continue living that way. Such was the intensity of the pain and the sense of medical abandonment she felt. This confession is powerful because it reveals a side of public figures that is rarely seen, the side of extreme vulnerability. The woman whom everyone saw as confident, strong, and inspiring was, in secret, fighting against hopelessness. Yet, at the same time, it is a story of transformation. It was precisely at that point of emotional exhaustion that Shannon decided to persist, to keep seeking answers and refuse to let her pain be rendered invisible. Her faith and her support system, including her husband, Sheldon, played a fundamental role in helping her find the strength to move forward. The impact of that psychological crisis was so profound that, when she finally received the correct diagnosis, Shannon described not only physical relief but also an emotional weight being lifted from her shoulders. Discovering that there was an explanation for her pain, and that she was not imagining things, was transformative. Even without a definitive cure, that moment marked the beginning of the reconstruction of her hope. By publicly sharing this part of her story, Shannon Bream not only humanized her public image but also offered comfort to thousands of people who live with chronic or invisible illnesses and who often feel the same loneliness and despair. She became an example that speaking openly about mental health is not a sign of weakness, but of courage, and that even in the darkest moments, there is always a way out. Her journey shows that behind the public image, there is a woman who, like so many others, has gone through deep crises but chose to fight and transform her suffering into a message of strength and solidarity. The personal diagnosis of breast cancer was one of the most delicate and transformative moments in Shannon Bream's life, an experience that revealed her courage amid fragility and added yet another layer to the silent battles she had already faced. Known for her firm and confident presence on television, Shannon kept this painful part of her story to herself for a long time, choosing not to immediately expose the burden she was carrying. The shock of the diagnosis hit her like a heavy weight, because in addition to dealing with her husband Sheldon's health challenges, she now found herself facing a personal battle that could completely change the course of her life. The news brought fear, uncertainty, and questions about the future. Feelings common to anyone who receives a cancer diagnosis, but even more intense for someone who already carried so many public and personal responsibilities. Facing cancer required both physical and emotional strength in equal measure. Shannon underwent surgery and treatments, and although she chose not to share all the details with the public at the time, she later made it clear that this struggle was a turning point in her life. The experience was not only about overcoming a disease, but also about rediscovering her priorities, valuing the smallest moments, and recognizing that no one, regardless of status or success, is immune to human fragility. During this period, her faith, which had always been a central pillar in her life, became even more essential. Shannon spoke about how prayer, spirituality, and the unwavering support of her husband were fundamental in helping her get through the hardest days, keeping her hope alive even in the face of such a heavy diagnosis. Despite the seriousness of the situation, Shannon never allowed cancer to define who she was. On the contrary, she chose to face the illness as another battle she could transform into strength and inspiration. After her recovery, she began speaking more openly about the topic, encouraging other women to take care of their health, undergo preventive exams, and never ignore the signs their bodies send. This side of Shannon, more human and vulnerable, earned her even greater respect from the public because it showed that behind the strong television host there is a woman who knows fear, pain, and resilience up close. The breast cancer diagnosis was not just a medical episode in her life, but an experience that deeply connected her with millions of people facing similar challenges. Today, looking back, Shannon acknowledges that this phase not only tested her limits but also made her more empathetic, resilient, and aware of the importance of sharing her battles so that others might feel less alone. The public attacks and confrontations involving Shannon Bream and powerful figures represent one of the most controversial sides of her career, because they reveal how, even as a respected and admired television anchor, she has never been immune to the pressures, criticisms, and direct clashes that are part of the American political and media landscape. Working at Fox News, a network often associated with heated debates and political polarization, Shannon became known for maintaining a firm and composed stance during interviews, often refusing to back down in front of influential politicians, high-ranking officials, or prestigious guests. This trait, which many saw as proof of her courage and professionalism, also earned her a number of enemies and personal attacks. Among the most notable episodes were her confrontations with close allies of former President Donald Trump. In several interviews, Shannon asked questions considered uncomfortable and adopted a tone that contrasted with the more favorable approach part of the network often had toward the administration. That alone was enough to make her a target of harsh criticism on public platforms, including negative comments posted on Truth Social, the social media network created by Trump. These remarks quickly gained traction, sparking a wave of online attacks against her. Some accused her of being too harsh, or even of betraying the narrative expected by politically aligned viewers. But Shannon did not let herself be completely shaken. On the contrary, Many colleagues and journalists pointed out that it was precisely during these moments that she displayed her greatest strength, refusing to compromise her professional integrity even when it meant risking her popularity among certain groups. For her, interviewing powerful figures meant holding them accountable with clear, direct questions, regardless of ideology or party. This stance placed her in a delicate position, admired by some, fiercely criticized by others. Beyond political disputes, Shannon also faced criticism from rival media outlets and commentators who saw her as too aligned with Fox News, proving that, in a time of growing polarization, she became a target from both the left and the right at different moments. Even so, Shannon always made a point of maintaining her composure, avoiding unnecessary controversy, and letting her work speak louder than any attack. These public confrontations highlight not only the risks of working in one of the most polarized environments of our time, but also Shannon Bream's resilience under pressure. They show that, beyond the personal and health battles she fought behind the scenes, there was also a constant war for her credibility and professional reputation. And perhaps it is precisely this combination of human vulnerability and professional strength that makes her story so powerful and inspiring. And so, we've reached the end of this video about Shannon Bream is saying goodbye after her husband's tragic diagnosis. A story filled with pain, courage, and the kind of difficult decisions that completely changed the course of Shannon's and her husband's lives. This farewell isn't just about stepping away from television. It's a deeply human reminder that all of us can be caught off guard by unexpected battles. Now, I want to ask for your help so this story can reach even more people. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do it now and turn on the notification bell. Your subscription tells YouTube that this video matters and helps more people discover stories like this one. Don't forget to hit the like button too. That simple gesture really strengthens our work and keeps us bringing you powerful stories. And I want to hear from you. What surprised you the most in Shannon's and her husband's journey? Share your thoughts in the comments. I read them all and love to know how each of you connects with these stories. Before you go, don't leave without watching the next video that's appearing right now on your screen. I promise, it's even more intriguing, emotional, and full of revelations that will captivate you from start to finish. Click it, and let's keep this journey together. See you there.